This is Gemara Zevachim Daf Mem Zayin, and we're holding at the bottom of Mem Vav Amid Beis. We are 5 lines from the bottom at the 2 dots, in which we're going to continue discussing the Shita of Rav, which will actually go back up a drop and quote on the last narrow line. We like all the learning to be an incredible zchus. Refuah Shleima for Gabriel Simcha ben Miriam Ahuva b'seich sha'ar chayli Yisrael. So let's just scroll up for a moment to where the Gemara began with the memra of Rav Yehuda Marav, Oyla l'shem Oyla, La'afuke l'shem Shlamim Deloi, Ishim l'shem Ishim, La'afuke Kibava Deloi, Reach l'shem Reach, La'afuke Ivarim Shetsalon, Ve'elon Diloi. So this is the memra of Rav. We saw similarly Dam Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Moving on to the first wide line, Evarim Shesalon Ve'elon Ein Be'em Misham Reach Michayach L'Shem Anachas Reach L'Shem L'Shem Mi Shehai Amar V'Haya Ha'Elam. So this is the discussion of the positive kavanais that are necessary during Shechita. As we started yesterday, the Mishnah that taught us the Shisha Dvarim when you shech the carbon. So let's continue on the second wide line. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Chata sheshachta l'shem ayla psula l'shem chulan kshera. Why? Amar Rav Lazar Maitem with Rav L'chal l'shem kachim b'nei Yisrael kachim b'chalin kachim chulan b'chalin kachim. So having das for l'shem chulin, then it will not mess up your carbon. Masiv Rabbah. So now we got ourselves back into the flow of things. Let's pick it up. This is really where we are up to, the 2 dots, 5 lines from the bottom. Asks Rabbah on Rav from our Mishnah. Amar Rav Yaisi, Af Mishlaya B'liba L'Shem Echad Mikol Elu Kasher. Said Rav Yaisi, you have nothing in mind. It's kosher. Why? You shoot tonight Bezdin. So explains the Gemara, what's obvious, the Oktaima, Shloya believe by Klal. Seemingly, because your heart is blank. Ha'haya believe by L'Shem Chulin. Then, Pasul. But if it's in your mind, L'Shem Chulin, then it would be Pasul. So how does Rav Yehuda Marav tell me if it's in your mind, L'Shem Chulin, it's kosher? Amrei Abaya, Dilma Loi, Haya Klal. Maybe when Rav Yossi says, that there's nothing in your mind at all, what he meant was kosher umiratze. So says the Gemara, maybe we could upgrade everything a little bit. When you have no kavana bechlal, then not only is the carbon kosher, but miratze, it works, it's accepted for whatever the carbon was supposed to be. What's the next level down? Then, as Rav Yehuda Marav taught us, 2 lines at the bottom, kosher, but ve'ena miratze. So maybe that's going to be pshat, says the Gemara, and we don't have a kasha on Rav anymore. Amar Rav Elazar, let's continue. Chata sheshachta l'shem chulin kshera, mishom chulin psula. So says Rav Elazar, if, as you just learned from Rav Yehuda Marav, you shechta l'shem chulin, it's kosher. But if you thought it was chulin, mishum chulin, as Rashi, the last line points out, kosavar shehem chulin, then it's going to be pasul. The Gemara says, where do we see this from? As Shmuel asks from Rav Huna, as we turn over to Mem Zayin Amid Beis, and we immediately notice that the end of the perek is coming up. How do we know if you're misasek? Misasek by Shabbos, we have learned. Misasek means there's nothing in your mind. Tab Rashi points out, you're still daydreaming, you're still thinking about other things. So says the Gemara, how do you know it's possible? Shenhamar v'shachan es ben abakar l'nei Hashem. Asher shchita l'shem ben bakar. The shchita has to be l'shem, the item in front of you. You have to be cognizant that you're shechting. Meaning, we're pointing out that obviously the highest level is shchita l'shem the chatas l'shem the carbon. But what if you're just shechting mamish with nothing in zin, nothing in mind at all? Then says the Gemara, that's a problem. Why? Because you have to at least, the very lowest level is cognizance of what you're doing. It has to be shchita l'shem ben bakar. Amar lo Shmuel responds, Zubi Yadino. We already know this diok la'akeminayim, but how do we know that, as you said on the top line, if you're misasik, it's possible? You just told me what you're supposed to do in the positive. How do you know if you don't, it's possible? Amar lei. Rav Huna explains, their tzornchem tizbachu l'daitchem zvicha. From the pasuk, they have to shechte according to your will. We see there has to be l'daitchem, at least cognizant, at least aware of what is going on. Continues the Gemara 5 lines down. She'ena machshava hileches elo achar ha'ovid. The end of the Mishnah, Rav Yasi said that the machshava is only goes by the one who does the avodah. Explains the Gemara Masnisan Deliki Aitana. It's not like the following Tanya de Tanya Rav Elazar Rav Yosi Shamati Shabaylim Mifaglin. I heard that the owners can create something piggle. So we see the Bailim. You just told me it's whom? Oivid, the Kayin doing the Avodah. Says the Gemara, no, this is not like Rav Elazar Rav Yosi says even the Bailim. Oh, my Rava, where did that come from? My Tem Rav Elazar Rav Yosi Damar Krav Hikriv Amakriv. The pasuk says, and the one should bring his carbon. The fact that it's called the Bailim is his carbon shows us you can even create pegel. Amar Abaye, says Abaye, Rav Elazar, Rav Yosi, Rav Elazar, Rav Eliezer, Rav Shimon ben Elazar, Kolu, Sfirlu, they all hold like Elazar Rav Yosi. Zeh mechashe v'zeh oived have machshava. This one has the kavana. This one does the avodah. Then it works. I mean, not that it works. Excuse me. And it can create pigel. Meaning, even the machshava of the bailim has the ability to create pigel. Rav Yosi Hadamarn, as we just saw. Rav Elazar, where do we see Rav Eliezer? Ditinan, as we learned in a Mishnah. Someone shechts for a guy, the shchita is kosher. Rav Eliezer paisel. Why does Rav Eliezer paisel? Because says Rashi 6 lines down. The reason is it explains explicitly over there. Because what is the stam kavanah of a guy? The shem avodah zara. So we see the kavanah of the bailim can mess up the carbon. Mandamar number 2 that concurs. Number 3, Rav Shimon Elazar the Tanat. Klalam Rav Shimon Elazar kol she'ein kosher latzniya. Anything which is normal to store. Gemara in Shabbos v'itz matzniya gamayu, and you don't store items like it. Hochshar lozeh v'itznio. But for this one person, for him, he normally stores this item. Uba acher, and someone else comes. So this guy is storing something which is not normally stored, whether it's size, whether it's type of item, and then someone else comes and carries it on Shabbos to Rosh Hashanah. Says the Gemara, quoting the Gemara in Shabbos, Nischayiv zeh b'machshava shel zeh. This guy is chayiv with the machshava of that guy. So we see just like over here that the machshava of the bailim could create that this is an entity which is shayech to Aitzah. So too by us, we're saying that the machshava of the bailim can mess up the carbon. Says the Gemara, Tervayu. So we have 3 different shitas. Says the Gemara, Tervayu islu Rav Elazar Rav Yosi. The other 2 Tanaim, Rav Eliezer, when he said you're shachting the carbon of an akum, Rav Shimon Elazar, who said about carrying on Shabbos, they agree with Elazar Rav Yosi klape pegel. Why? Hashta bachotz amrinan. If regarding bachotz, non-carbonais, we say that the Bailim's machshava could affect something else, bifnimi bai, then certainly klape a carbon. But Rav Elazar, Rav Yossi, who was original Baal Memra, less lahu tetzervayu. He does not have to agree with the din by Hoitzan Shabbos, with the din of shechting for nakum. Why? Because perhaps it's only a halacha bifnim and bachotz loy amrinan banat outside of the Beis Hamikdash. Rav Shimon Elazar continues the Gemara Islay Rav Eliezer. Shimon Elazar, who says din klape carrying on Shabbos, whole like Rav Eliezer klape shechting for a guy. Why? Hashem b'Shabbos amrinan. Certainly you would say by Avodah. But Rav Elazar, lastly, Rav Shimon Elazar, he doesn't have to hold about din of Shabbos. Why? Dilma, perhaps. Because why? Because Avodah Kachavim is Ke'in Bifnim. It's similar to Avodah Bifnim. Avol Shabbos, Melechas Machshavas, Asra Torah. And maybe Melechas Machshavas goes Klape, the Machshava of the one doing it. And not the Machshava back of the Bailim. And therefore, we're not necessarily holding that. Rashi over here at the end of the parak keys us back into the world of Shabbos. Rashi says, where do we know Melechas Machshavas? Nisbacha. Shabbos, the Parsha Mishkan, B'Vayakel. Melechas Machshavas, Sha'isa, Isa, Miskavin, Lemlacha, Gemura. Ela Shashagag, B'Shabbos, like Yosef Hashem, Melacha, Zumoteres. V'zeh Shir, Zechosha, Ve'ina, Ve'ina, Miskavin, Lemlacha. So we can't necessarily utilize his kavana for someone else's maisa, so you wouldn't necessarily agree to him. Hadron aloch, Beis Shammai. And we go and we dive straight into the fifth parak. Says the Mishnah, Zevachim. This should hopefully sound familiar. What is the place where one shechs? Where does the shechita happen? As we're going to see, not just the shechita. Where does the Kabbalah happen? Where does the Zrika happen? Where does the Achila happen? The shechita of Kachei Kachim is Batzafain. Now, Batzafain means, if you look at Rashi in the first medium-sized line, what's going on in the Mishnah? It's about to say, just as Shel Zevachim doesn't say which are voidos, so the Gemara is going to discuss exactly what's going on over here. But the first detail is it has to be B'Safin. Now, what does B'Safin mean? We saw this way back in Daf Chaf, which it means, in broad strokes, it means outside of the Heichal, in the area between the Mizbeach HaChitzain and the Ulam. That area is B'Safin, and the Machlekes was how far back it goes. Is it only Mamish Bein HaMizbeach and the entrance, or is it even opposite the Mizbeach, or does it even include the Chatzar of Kehanim and the Chatzar Yisraelim? That was the discussion back on Daf Cha. Says the Mishnah, Par B'Yisrael Shel Yom Kippurim, Shchitas B'Safon V'Kibul Daman B'Chli Shareis. You have to catch the blood in Chli Shareis B'Safon there as well. V'Damantan Azaya. Where Al Bein Abadim, and you have to sprinkle the blood Al Bein Abadim between the poles. V'Al Pareichas Al Mizbeach Hazav. Matanachas Ben Ma'akev Shi'ari Adam. One placement of them is Me'akev. The Kapara Sheri Adam. The rest of the body Shefich is poured Al Yisoid Ma'aravi Shal Mizbeach on the western side of the Mizbeach. Me'achitza V'Mloi Nasan. And if you don't do that, Lo Yikev does not prevent, it does not hold back the Ritzoi. Case number 2, Paraman Israf, and this is Ezel Mekaimun of Ezel Mekaimun Fade, that is part of our tefillos every morning. Paraman Israfim, Musir Man Israfim, Shchitazim Basafin as well, Kibudam B'Chli Shars Basafin, V'Damatan Azaya Al Bereiches, V'Mizbeach Hazav. These differ, of course. Only the first Karbanos Sirav Yom Kippurim go Bin Abadim and Ala Bereiches. Now we're up to the Paraman Israfim, Sirav Nisrafim. They're sprinkled Ala Bereiches and on the Mizbeach Hazav. And we turn over to Memzayin Amid Beis. It continues the Mishnah. Matana Achas, one placement of them, Ma'akeves, is going to be Ma'akev if you're missing even one. Shiari Adam, the remnants of the blood, Yeshevich is part of Yisrael Ma'arav Yisham Mizbeach HaChitz on the western base. V'im nasan lo ikif. Elu ve'elu nisrafim. Where? Abeis Hadashen. Where is both of these karbanos of Yom Kippur and of the Seirim and the Parim are burnt in the place of the Beis Hadashen. Rashi points out, where is that? In the place that he would take out the ashes of the Mizbeach, as the Pasuk says, and the Parim and Israfim Siv al Shafach Hadashed V'Shal Yom Kippur Kishu L'Par Elam Davar, as we saw prior in Daf Lametes, and therefore they're all burnt on that same place of the Beis Hadashen, which is outside, which is Bachutz. Says the Gemara. Just to mention how often do you take off the ashes? This brings us back to Mesechus Talmud. There is a avodah of Trumas Hadashen. But Trumas Hadashen, a big mistake, we also learned it in Yuma, is not Toitzas Hadashen. Trumas Hadashen just means they would take off some ashes. When do they clear it all out? It's only when the pile, the tapuach, got very large, because it was a knife for the Mizbech to keep on the ashes. So at that point, and where they emptied out those ashes, that's where these two karbanos are burnt. Says the Gemara, the Mishnah began. Shel Zevachim, and then it's a Kachi Kedashim Shchita Son Batsafin. Says the Gemara, why just the Shchita? Really, we're talking about the Kabbalah, and we're talking about all the dinim together. So why did the Mishnah put it all together? Let's just scroll back up to the Amid Aleph. The lashon of the Mishnah was Shchitas and Batzafin. Then it went into examples, and within the examples, it told me, as the third line of the Mishnah shows, Shchitas and Batzafin, Kibul Damuk Lisharis Batzafin. So the Gemara is wondering, why does the Mishnah open up Kachim, Shchitas and Batzafin? And then in the examples, it gives those examples. It should have listed right to start the Shchita, the Kabbalah, and the Klisharis Batzafin. Explains the Gemara, Kimadik Ashem Mitzayer, there are other karbanos. The Kibul Damai is Biyad. Klishares, who Sheyare, therefore the Tana left it out. Ask the Gemara, Vilai, is that true that the Asham of the Mitzaira, the Kabbalah of the dam, is not Beklisharis, Vakatani law, Lekaban, Asham Nazir, Asham Mitzaira, Shchitas Batzafain, Kibul Damai Klisharis Batzafain. So how can you tell me not? Explains the Gemara, Meikaras have originally the Tana thought, Kibul Damai Biyadhu. So Sheyare, and therefore he left it out of our Mishnah. But Kivan Delo Sagile, Elabikli. But since Lamaisa, it needs a Kli. Hadar Tanya, therefore he put it in a ladder Mishnah. Titanya, Velakach. And this is where we learned everything up from. This is the progression. Klape, the Asham of the Mitzaira, it says you should take the blood. Yachla, I would think Bekli Tamalam Vanasan, Manesina Baatzmai. Shel Kayin, just like the application is with the Kayin's body itself. So I would think that even onto the Mizbeach is the same. You do Kayin should do with his hand. Kain, Tamalai Marki, Vachatas Asham, who Machatas Teuna Kli, Af Asham Taun Kli. So this is where we see that it doesn't need a Kinim Sata Aimer, Asham Misaira, Shnei Koyhanim. Mekablin daman echad biyad vechad b'kli. Zechkil b'kli baloi tzam mizvech. Zechkil b'yad baloi itzel mitzeira. And therefore, the Asher mitzeira really is both. And the reason why the Mishnah didn't list it was because of the havamina. And only afterwards we realized it have to be b'kli. Stop over here. We'll pick it up on the top of Daf Mem.